apatyat, from things injurious to health, such as meat and intoxicants. Dvandvat, from duality. Bhayat, from fear. Rishabha, Lord Rishabdev. Nirjita Atma, who fully controlled his mind and self. Yagya, Yagya. Cha, and. Lokat, from the defamation of the populace. Avatat, may he protect. Jana Antat, from dangerous positions created by other people. Bala, Lord Balaram. Ganat, from the hordes of. Krodha Vashat, the angry serpents. Ahindra, Lord Balaram in the form of the serpent Sheshanaga. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His incarnation as Dhanvantari relieve me from undesirable eatables and protect me from physical illness. May Lord Rishabdev, who conquered his inner and outer senses, protect me from fear produced by the duality of heat and cold. May Yagya protect me from defamation and harm from the populace. May Lord Balaram as Shesha protect me from envious serpents. Purport. To live within this material world, one must face many dangers as described herein. For example, undesirable food poses a danger to health, and therefore one must give up such food. The Dhanvantari incarnation can protect us in this regard. Since Lord Vishnu is the supersoul of all living entities, if he likes, he can save us from the adibhotika disturbances from other living entities. Lord Balaram is the Shesha incarnation, and therefore he can save us from angry serpents or envious persons who are always ready to attack. Om Ginata Mandasya Ginanjana Shlakaya Chakshumaitam Yana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sarigora Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This section of the Bhagavatam, invoking the Narayana Kavacha shield, is really, if you look through the verses, calling upon the Lord in his various forms and asking him to protect us or to protect the person reciting these mantras in the various conditions of life. So from various difficulties. In this verse specifically, from physical illness, from the fear produced by the dualities of nature, from defamation from the populace, and from serpents. But if one looks at the rest of the verses, pretty much everything is covered more or less insofar as dangerous conditions of life. The various disturbances are classified into three types, which is adidevaka, natural disturbances from the demigods, adibodhika from other living entities, and adiatmika from one's own mind and body. And if one studies the condition of the material world, one can see that these disturbances are always occurring somehow or another everywhere. Of course, Adi Devika disturbances are happening all the time, whether in small or large ways. Of course, we are heading into the winter seasons, and people might be disturbed by the intense cold that comes. Uh, I was born in the southern U.S., where got kind of cold, or what we thought was cold, but uh, it was not as intense as northern winters, and it produces a disturbance by natural conditions. Even just inconvenience, for example, from the rain, is an example of an Adidevika disturbance. And even more uh, intense, there are so many natural disasters all over the world. There's forest fires every so often, um, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, uh, that cause so many disturbances, both by their um, own, just by the disturbance directly and the secondary effects of the disturbances. For example, in many places, the electrical grid is not necessarily so stable. And so when there is, some sort of natural disturbance, the uh, grid goes down, which causes a lot of suffering. We have a firefighter that regularly visits the farm, and he was talking about how in the winter, the number of calls that they get increases dramatically because in order to combat these Adidevika disturbances in the form of cold, people are using their heaters more, which of course increases the chances of fire, uh, and so engages the fire department more. So there's the Adi Devika disturbances. And then there's also the Adi Bhotika disturbances. We, of course, live in some sort of society uh, where the uh, we are forced in some way to live with each other. And of course, we gain many benefits from living in mm, contact with each other, but but it also manifests as so many disturbances. There's this analogy given in the 11th canto of a girl that was wearing many bangles on her wrist. And when the when she would move her arms, they would make noise because they would hit each other. Uh, and the analogy is given there that it was like society. That when you have many people living together, you have adibotika disturbances, disturbance from other living entities. Of course, adibotika can also mean disturbance from uh, so-called lower life forms, insects, animals, etc. I guess even plants. But on the whole, those disturbances, unless one has been, um, is being eaten by a tiger or something, or has been bitten by a venomous serpent, are uh, not necessarily as common or as intense as the disturbances from our fellow humans, which, as I was saying, are manifest due to the fact that we all have to live together, and as such, generate sometimes accidentally and sometimes purposefully disturbances from uh, our social contact. And this can also be at multiple scales. Uh, of course, just simply by uh, living, working, serving together, there's always misunderstandings. One person did or said something in a certain way that the other person took to mean something else, either correctly or incorrectly. So you didn't smile at me when you passed by me in the hallway, or you smiled at me too much and I found it patronizing as you passed by me in the hallway, uh, and became disturbed from such an interaction. Or, this person did not uh, leave this area in a certain way, or said something in a uh, some other uh, way such that we become disturbed. And of course, on a larger scale, there is society, economy, and politics, which is, of course, kind of the uh, perfection of Adibotica disturbances, uh, in that they are very widespread and have the potential for a lot of suffering to occur because of the actions of other living entities. Of course, economic action, there can be so much disturbances uh, because of the what are known as externalities, which basically just means whatever the economists don't want to consider, because they don't have dollar values necessarily attached to them. Uh, but these externalities cause so much disturbance um, to the general populace. One example that comes to mind is microplastics, which we're still not sure of the effects of, but are found uh, pretty much everywhere these days, and are being ingested just simply by the uh, food that we eat, uh, probably even the water that we drink, everything. And also the activities taken for uh, economic gain, if not done with higher purpose, can become very, truly demoniac. Dhruva was telling me before about a situation that arose in India several years ago, where the Indian farmers were uh, getting at a very good deal certain grains from some company that uh, specializes or at least engages in genetic engineering of crops. And they were given these grains at a supposedly very good deal for the first year. And they even said, you can pay us back later. We'll give you them now and you'll just owe us. And they even got the pesticides from this company. And, the first year, it was going pretty well. The engineered crops were, uh, growing as they were designed to in a very good manner. Uh, but the issue came when the uh, farmers decided to try to plant other things. And what they had figured out had occurred is that the crops were specifically engineered to resist the pesticide from the company, and the uh, pesticide from the company was engineered to kill literally everything else, uh, and that you could not grow even a single grain of anything else if the soil had this pesticide in it. So, what were the farmers to do? And, they were saying, we can't afford to buy another year of your crops, of your seeds. And the company, of course, said, oh, don't worry, we'll just put it on your tab and you'll just owe us even more. And this is a stark example of disturbances meant to just are really a demoniac scheme to uh, profit off of others, no matter the suffering that it causes. Of course, society in so many ways as well uh, causes suffering by the mm, interaction with other uh, living entities. The example here is given of Lord Rishabhdev, who, of course, was defamed by the populace for no good reason. Of course, Lord Rishabhdev is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he uh, renounced, and during his renunciation, he was uh, harmed and slandered by the populace. Uh, and of course, nowadays, it is very easy to be defamed one way or another uh, in the age of social media and what they now call cancel culture, where people, no matter what you say about a subject matter, there will be people who are ready to drag you through the mud, so to speak, over the uh, mm, over basically anything that you say. And of course, politics is sort of the ultimate in Adibodhika disturbances, in the sense that they have the power of legal authority to do things. There, of course, many times in history and even today where there is unjust laws uh, that are being um, enacted that uh, use the power of the state to somehow or another uh, punish those who disagree with the prevailing regime. And all of these cause disturbances from other living entities. And then there is the uh, types of disturbance that are adiatmika, disturbances from the self. Of course, one type of these is disturbances from the body. The various aches and pains or injuries that one endures, either through accidents or being attacked or just through the process of aging. One develops so many disturbances in relation to the body. And then there is, of course, disturbances related to the mind, which is extremely prevalent, especially nowadays in the progression of Kali Yuga. There are so many people who have some sort of mental disturbance. And the rates of depression, anxiety, uh, suicidality, pretty much every mental disturbance, uh, the rates of trauma, etc., is growing uh, in a very alarming manner. These are all disturbances from one's own mind. And actually, the in a certain way of looking at it, the only true disturbance uh, or the only true suffering exists in uh, one's own mind. There's this saying that pain is inevitable, but suffering is not. And kind of the takeaway, or what people mean when they say that, is that we will inevitably have some sort of setbacks or um, disturbances or bad situations throughout life. But whether we choose to dwell on those, or I guess it should be better said, that how we choose to approach those negative situations is a function of the mind. And ultimately, of course, as pretty much everything in the material world is, a function of the modes of nature that we decide to engage with. We could engage in the uh, lower modes of ignorance and passion. These bad things are happening to me. Let me, just wallow in my misery, or let me try to seek revenge on the people who had done these things to me. Or we could approach it in a more sattvic way, as in trying to realize that these disturbances are simply the results of my own karmic activities. And, by undergoing these, I've been purified, or as a chance for purification of the mentality that first led me to commit these activities in the first place, and as a clearing of the debts that I owe. And of course, one may always take the opportunity to think of the Lord in whatever situation one finds oneself in. The prototypical example of this is, of course, Queen Kunti, who prays in the first canto that all of the various disturbances that befell her and her family, let them come again, because at least when there are disturbances, Krishna was there to assist them and to help them uh, come out of it. And now that the Battle of Kurukshetra was over and there's no more danger, Krishna is going back to Dwarka and leaving the Pandavas. So Queen Kunti prays, let there be disturbances, let there be the suffering again and again. Of course, we shouldn't imitate the great devotees of the past, because of course, when there are disturbances, Queen Kunti prays to Krishna, and it helps um, her feel closer to him. Uh, for many of us who might not be at that level, when there are disturbances, uh, it might be very difficult to think of Krishna because of our long association with the material energy. But we can still pray to Krishna in his various forms, as is being described in the Narayan Kavacha shield, in the chapter that we're reading, to protect us from the various um, miseries that are there. Uh, and hope that as we advance on the path of devotional service, we can come to the platform of having the attitude of, disturbance, no disturbance. I will simply go on with my service, which we have so many examples in Shastra and even later of devotees who have acted in such a way. Of course, the most salient example for us is Srila Prabhupada, who underwent so many uh, mm, disturbances, so many hardships to preach the glories of Krishna consciousness, uh, regardless of the um, disturbances that came. The attitude was simply, let me do my service. And we should try to develop this attitude as well and advance in devotional service in that way. So I think that is all that I have. Are there any comments, questions, additions, etc.? Dr. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for your class, and I appreciate your thorough discussion of the various miseries that we are subjected to, and doing so on a verse which you probably did not prepare for, but um, covered the issue of the sufferings that are imposed upon us. And so I'm thinking about this, and I just off the top of my head, I see, I guess, four different ways in which these varieties of miseries are mitigated by Krishna consciousness. So one is being presented here in these verses, that uh, we are or uh, the instruction for the Narayan coverage field is to appeal to various avatars for their protection from those miseries. So protection is one. Then, as you were describing, by the process of Krishna consciousness, one can um, uh, reduce the tendency to engage in the types of sinful activities that result in the reactions that we experience as suffering. So that is another way in which there is mitigation. I'm having a hard time remembering what I was thinking. Another senior moment. Another way is, I can't remember the third way. I'll go on to the fourth way, which is that ultimately, the third is Krishna recommends in Bhagavad Gita, says, Machara Sparsastakam Taya Satoshna Dukadukata Agama Payanodi Dastam Satikshatra Bharata, that he recommends tolerating the different types of miseries that arise from sense perception, naturally, like winter and summer seasons will come and go. So he's recommending that that one simply tolerate them, and because if you don't tolerate them, and your reaction is instead to try to make adjustments to somehow or other mitigate your misery and create a more comfortable situation for yourself, the result is that you wind up only further entangling yourself. So better to just tolerate. Otherwise, you actually will make the situation worse. So the fourth way is the ultimate solution, that because all of the miseries are associated with this material body, and so ultimately, by the process of Krishna consciousness, we come to the understanding that, well, I'm not this body, and so everything in connection with it is has actually nothing to do with me. And so it is possible to detach oneself completely from the bodily entanglement to the extent that we don't have to experience um, the pains and pleasures associated with the body.
Mm,
Ultimately, just we can go back home and to our natural environment where there is no question of suffering. So those are just off the top of my head some of the ways that Krishna consciousness will mitigate um, suffering, which is a real issue.
mhm.
Everyone's suffering to different degrees, and in some cases, the suffering is really really severe.
Yeah.
Um, I I I stumbled yesterday on a video, um, a terrible. Oh my God! A scene from Syria where there's been a great deal of fighting going on, and
Mhm.
so there's this particular prison there, notorious for its mistreatment of prisoners, and um, there was a video from this prison of some poor fellow being tortured,
Mm,
and basically his body appeared at this point to be just like a big pile of ground beef or something.
mm,
Still alive, still crying out, while a crowd of men were seemed to be really enjoying tormenting this poor fellow.
mm,
That's some terrible karma, but these are the kind of things that are possible once you fall into the quagmire of material life. One thing leads to another, and you can find yourself in a really really bad situation with no means to extricate yourself. So
mhm,
there is but one means to extricate yourself, which is the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, and we are blessed to have that opportunity. And with that blessing, of course, also comes the obligation to share that with others for their benefit. Otherwise, we become culpable as misers. Um, anyway, those were some of my thoughts, and I'm wondering if maybe you could comment on some of that, um, uh, or not, as you choose. But I'd love to hear more about how Krishna consciousness is the solution. Anyway, Hare Krishna, thank you again.
all right, well, thank you. Yeah, what came to mind is actually, we want to be, yeah, ultimately it is the solution, as you were saying, because it extricates us from the entire cycle of material existence. The world is constructed in such a way so that uh, suffering and happiness always come together. So, we want to give up suffering and not give up the happiness. We want all of the material trappings of success, enjoyment, etc. But we don't want the uh, suffering that comes with them. Um, but what if one, studies Shastra and has some knowledge, or even if just, one is very intelligent and looks at the situation, one can see that in the endeavor for happiness comes suffering uh, in one way or another for material happiness. And actually, the only solution is Krishna consciousness or spiritual happiness, which is beyond the ebb and flow of material nature. And in Krishna consciousness, even, in pure Krishna consciousness, even that which seems like it should be suffering is actually enjoyment. We read, for example, about love and separation from Krishna, one's beloved, which should be suffering, but is actually the highest spiritual ecstasy. Uh, so, yeah, we should very seriously take up this process of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, we should first realize actually how much suffering there is in the world and what one can be subjected to, either in this life or the next, uh, by dealing in the material energy. And that should motivate us to very seriously take up this process of Krishna consciousness and attempt to make this life our last life under the control of the material energy. Uh, and we should very seriously endeavor not to have to come back into the world of Maya. So those are just some extra thoughts. If anybody else has any comments or questions. All right. Going once, going twice.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, I think you kind of touched on what I wanted to bring up. That in our efforts to mitigate anxiety, Tarka Prabhu mentioned, then we can go back to Vaikuntha, which is place of no anxiety.
Mm.
And I was thinking that in one sense, we can never actually be free of anxiety. And
Mm.
every material attempt to be relieved of anxiety is impossible and still keeps us bound in the world because we're looking for a material solution for an anti-material problem.
Mm.
And because even in the spiritual world, there's anxiety, and you gave the example of separation, but that's the highest ecstasy. In the material world, it's suffering. So how can we ever escape anxiety? There's no material way to do that. That's all. Right.
Yeah, and what came to mind when you were speaking is that the only way, or I guess the only position that might be free from anxiety is impersonal liberation. But of course, that is, as we read, in some sense unstable because we are eternally persons, and then eventually have the desire to do personal activities. And also, of course, what comes to mind as well is the analogy of the tree by the lake, so the reflected tree. And of course, anybody who has ever been in anxiety over romantic endeavors knows that it's a very disturbing condition of life. Uh, but of course, it's what is lowest in the material world is highest in the spiritual world. Uh, so that anxiety over the romantic endeavors of Radha and Krishna are of course, the greatest position to be in. So, if there is no last minute additions, we will end here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Radhe. Jai Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radhe. Jai Nitai Gora Sundar Nitai Gora Sundar Gora. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Swami Iti Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Srivasari Gaura Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Sampriti Jai Saranamati Jai Taiwan Nande Asifico, always from the devotees, Hare Krishna, always from the devotees, Hare Krishna, always from the devotees, Hare Krishna, always Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Shri the lotus feet of spiritual master are the only way to obtain pure spiritual spirits. Without all of those, we can see the following methods. Highest spirits will cross the material suffering, obtaining mercy sufficient. Followers without lack conscience purified by the words emanating from this lotus mouth. Pathway through the lotus feet, effective, fill all the love. He opens my darkened eyes, fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my wonder, carpenter. Everything to the friend, spile is destroyed, the native spirits in his character. Our spiritual master, or Lord Master of the words, no master, fears, unknown. feel the shame, you notice you're famous by all of you felt the things. The divine grace they see Bhagavatam, much more life you need.